And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 87th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, May 7th, 2019, where I am your host, Noah Freeman. You can catch our live broadcast Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube page or our website. If you missed the live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts, so you can listen on your own time. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at The Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ. Subscribe and turn that bell on to get all of those notifications. All of our information is in our website, indianahq.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it is time for some sports talk. On the docket for tonight, there was a small bit of schedule news that came out today about who another non-conference schedule opponent the men's basketball team will kind of face in the next few months. Then the women's basketball team picked up yet another recruit in the class of 2019. In addition, Indiana Mr. and Miss Basketball was presented, and the Hoosiers are getting both next season. Then we'll wrap up the episode with more of a fun topic, so stick around to see what it is. Here with me tonight for the second week in a row, all three of us are back together again. The Iron Man and Thor to my Captain America are in the house tonight to help me break down the most recent news in IU sports. Nathan, how are you doing tonight, and which Avenger out of those two would you rather be?
Oh man, I'm doing great. I'll take Captain America because I feel like Matt can claim that Iron Man throne a little bit more.
No. I picked Captain America first. You get
sorry.
Iron Man or Thor.
Oh, geez. I'll take Thor.
All right. So, yeah. Matt, kick us off with your thoughts on the sort of kind of another non-conference game being announced today, and are you okay with stuck being with Iron Man?
Yeah, I'm okay with being Iron Man. I will be glad if you guys can cry about me. No spoilers. Anyway, cry about me. Anyways, moving on. I try not to spoil Endgame too much. Anyways, so today we were picked for the Jimmy V Classic in New York, along with Texas Tech, of course, runners-up from last year's championship game, Louisville, who we've played in the non-conference the last couple of years, and UConn. Now, it has been rumored that UConn is playing a Big 12 team, which means that we're playing Louisville in Madison Square Garden in the Jimmy V Classic. They're so closely named together. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, so Jimmy V Classic, I actually like the move. I really like Madison Square Garden as an arena. Historically, IU hasn't played very well there, as of recently losing to Rutgers in the Big Ten tournament. But we're not going to hold that against this next year's Hoosiers because it's a new year, a new team. And playing Louisville on a national stage, or Texas Tech or UConn, whoever it is a great start for the season and a great addition to the what is going to be probably a somewhat difficult non-conference schedule.
Yep. So what Matt just mentioned about the non-conference schedule, but as of now, at least some of the news that we have, there's the potential for the 2019 Gavitt games, and we've talked a little bit about this. Some people think we might get it, but that's not something that's set in stone. I mentioned it however many months ago. We talked about it potentially. The Gavitt games, the Big Ten, their contract with the Gavitt games, it's you kind of have to play a certain amount of games in a certain amount of years, and Indiana has played a lot of those games recently. So the next year or maybe even 2 years, they might not have to play a Gavitt game, or they could decide not to. So it just depends on what I don't even know who it's when it's all said and done, who it's up to, if that's Archie making the final decision or Fred or whoever. So there's a potential Gavitt game, which I mean, you could also see maybe the Jimmy V game replacing, but we definitely will have Arkansas at Bloomington with trading the home and home. Definitely the Big Ten ACC Challenge, which it's assumed and anticipated that the game's going to be at home. And again, we've talked about potential opponents. I think Matt went on a 5 or 10 minute rant about who would want to play in that opponent. And spoiler, it's not Duke or UNC. But then, of course, the Crossroads Classic, which this year will be Notre Dame since Butler was last year. And that's kind of it for. Did I miss anyone? Is that basically it for the concrete teams / tournaments that we're going to play in?
That's about it. Oh, wait, no, we have the Maui Invitational we're playing this year.
No, that's the following year. That'll be the 2020 year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I think you've covered the guaranteed ones.
Yeah.
Look, it should be a fun matchup, whether it's Louisville or Connecticut or Texas Tech. Obviously, Madison Square Garden is one of the most hallowed venues in basketball at any level. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I agree. So Matt also said this, that there are rumors already, or there were before, that UConn was going to be in the Jimmy V, and then they were going to play a Big 12 team, which leaves Indiana playing Louisville. And I don't know who I'd rather play, because historically, or at least not the last couple of years, but playing UConn would be a really neat team to play. Past couple of years, not so much. Texas Tech would be really cool to see, just because of all the spectacle they just put on a couple months ago. And yeah, they're losing a lot of people, but it'd be just interesting to play Texas Tech. I think most Hoosier fans would probably want to play Louisville just because we're battling them for recruits. They're 2 hours away from campus anyway. So I guess we'll have to see what our non-conference schedule will be, and basically seeing if the Indiana-Louisville matchup will continue or not is basically what it's going to come down to. But moving on to the women's basketball recruit. So the women's basketball team added yet another recruit to their already loaded class of 2019. They already had 4 incoming freshmen, and they just added another one with the recent transfer. So Indiana native Hannah Nervoski, I hope I didn't butcher that, has signed her national letter of intent for Indiana. She is a 6'5" forward, which again, for remember women's basketball, that's pretty tall. 6'5" forward who averaged 21.9 points and 12.2 rebounds per game as a senior at Michigan City in Indiana. She is the team's all-time leading scorer with 1,790 points, was a 2-time Times of Northwestern Indiana Athlete of the Year for Porter / LaPorte counties, a 4-time All-Conference selection, and a 2019 Indiana All-Star. She's going to join freshman Jory Allen, Shayla Bueller, Mackenzie Holmes, and Ariel Wisney. I'm going to butcher all these last names today. There are a lot of names in this episode today, for the incoming class. So, Nathan, why don't you kick us off with? We'll probably have to do an in-depth analysis, in-depth podcast on the women's basketball team, just because it's so it's going to be a really cool season for them. But what do you think of this most recent signing for the Lady Hoosiers to fill the void that they had a couple months ago?
Yeah, it's exciting. You know, I appreciate. I'm always a fan of the region. You know, the region folks, and I believe Hannah's from Michigan City, Indiana. So when I hear Northwest Indiana Times, I can confirm it's a very credible news organization. So you can definitely put a lot of credibility, a lot of stock into those accolades that she got. But look, it's just more momentum, isn't it? This women's basketball program that, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it they've won as many tournament games under Teri Moren as they did historically before she started coaching the program? Is that right?
It was something close to that, or at least in the past like 10 or 20 years, something like that.
I mean, that's still kind of crazy to just think about. And it's just more momentum. You know, Hannah Novorosky is going to join the team, and Jory Allen, who was named Miss Basketball, she's going to join the program also. I mean, come on, you got talented ladies in the state. Just get them to join the Hoosiers.
There was the so Hannah is not the 5-star. Your
Mhm.
kind of
Correct.
big recruit that is going to make a lot of splash and a lot of noise. When you've got a recruit that's coming in this late, usually they're not one of those top recruits. Usually, but that doesn't mean she's not going to be important to this team. Again, they lost a center for due to the transfer market about a month or so ago. So just looking at her accolades, I think she's going to be able to come in. She definitely, at least I don't think, definitely wouldn't start actually with some of the incoming recruits, but she's definitely going to be able to come in, fill a bench void. And 22 points per game basically is great, but when you look at 12.2 rebounds per game, she averaged a double-double. Getting those rebounds, I think that's the biggest part that I like to look at, especially when you've got just the stacked starter roster that the Lady Hoosiers are going to have. You're going to need some depth down low, and it's kind of, I guess, if you don't follow the women's basketball team, it's not the same person whatsoever, but it's kind of like Indiana adding Joey Brunk, Joey being basically that down low depth, I guess, if you will. Again, there's no stylistically, not necessarily the same, even not the same age, but just what Teri Moren was doing just to bring in the recruit was down low depth, more or less. And then, of course, we'll see where she gets to progress and develop within the next few years. But Matt, do you have any other thoughts about the newest women's basketball recruit?
Well, yeah, like you said, I think it adds depth on our backcourt, or no, sorry, front court. God, I am peak form today. On backcourt, that we desperately need depth on. Look, she's an Indiana girl. She's Indiana Miss Basketball. It doesn't get much better than that, sweeping Mr. and Mrs. Basketball for the state. So,
yeah, you are definitely not peak form because she is not Miss Basketball, which we're going to get to in a second. So. That's 3 weeks, Matt, in a row. I think that you're on a little bit of a slump with your podcasting.
Okay. It's fine. I'm gonna break out of it right now.
Yeah. Hey, well, you just graduated, so
thank you.
I think so you just got through the hump, which I think Nathan might talk about. So Nathan, who won the week this past week in IU sports?
Well, look, this time of year, we don't have basketball season going on. The football team isn't really doing much. We're watching basketball and hockey playoffs. They're fun. Baseball's doing its thing. But I'm going to go with the folks that successfully graduated this past weekend. You got through college. You did your job. It was a bit of a rainy Saturday in Bloomington, I hear. But look, all in all, it's just great to see another, group of 10,000 something Hoosiers that got their diplomas, and now you head off into the real world where who knows what happens. I did see, by the way, that Jordan Howard, the running back who's now in the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe he got his diploma from IU a few days ago as well. I saw a picture with him and Tom Allen at Memorial Stadium on Saturday. So I think that's pretty interesting. You think, obviously to all of us, these guys are just basketball and football, sometimes icons, or at least them as basketball player or football players. It's sometimes worth remembering that, they're a student athlete too, not just an athlete.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that, especially like someone like Cody Zeller, who was able to come back, say he wanted to finish his degree, get all that, let alone even doing some of his master's stuff. But Matt, the most recent graduate out of our podcasting crew, the last one to come through the ranks of an undergraduate at Indiana University. So bit of a derailment from the podcast episode itself. But Matt, how was graduating over the weekend?
Stressful, since me was pretty lazy in his classes this semester, and maybe cut a few grades closer than I wanted them to be, but it's fine. I passed everything, so we're good. What else? Oh, it was very rainy on Saturday, of course.
It was.
And it was very stressful between moving out on Friday afternoon because RPS kicked me out, and then trying to find a place to stay at Friday night, and then getting poured on during the commencement. It was fun, though. It was really enjoyable. Just want to thank everybody, like my girlfriend, Anna, who's wonderful, probably not listening to the podcast because she's probably not listening to the podcast, but My girlfriend and my parents, everybody, thank you so much for putting up with me and helping me through these 4 years. So,
Yeah.
go Hoosiers.
It was a very rainy afternoon. I was there. It was funny to see all of the ponchos, basically, of all the graduates sitting in the middle of Memorial Stadium, where, well, the ones that decided to show up at least are. So, but let's get on to some more basketball news. And of course, everyone has probably, or at least I hope you heard over the weekend, Indiana Mr. and Miss Basketball. Those awards were presented this past weekend. So for the women's side, Indiana recruit Jory Allen was named Indiana Miss Basketball, as Trace Jackson Davis on the guys' side was named Indiana Mr. Basketball. This was the first time since 1987 where both programs got Mr. and Miss Indiana Basketball. Let's start with Jory Allen. She, the incoming Lady Hoosier recruit, the Bedford North Lawrence alum, received 56 votes, which beat out North Harrison's Lily Hatton at 36 votes, Warren Central's Shayla Bueller at 32 votes, which is also another Indiana recruit as well, and then Marquette Catholic's Emma Nolan at 20 votes. Jory is a top recruit for Indiana in the ESPN Top 100 at number 52. She got offers by big schools like Michigan State, which actually was where her sister played. And despite all that, she actually ultimately chose Indiana, which is pretty cool to see Teri Moren winning a lot of those kinds of battles. She is only the third Miss Indiana basketball to play for IU. 1987's Lori Meinerding and 2015 with Allie Patberg. So Teri Moren now has 2 out of the 3 Miss Indiana basketballs ever to play for the Lady Hoosiers. Nathan, your thoughts on Jory Allen being named Miss Indiana basketball?
Yeah, it's exciting. She was a 5-star recruit. 96, I believe, was her grade on ESPN.com. You were giving kind of some background information there. Imagine what kind of excitement and just general hype there would be, and there has been, for 5-star players to join the men's basketball program. We've seen it with Yogi Ferrell and Cody Zeller and Romeo Langford. It is obviously going to be a lot of excitement over this kind of addition to your basketball team. Now, in the WNBA or in women's college basketball, you don't see as much. In fact, I don't think you see any one and done scenarios. So, Jory's going to be part of the team here for multiple years to come. And look, if she fits well with the team and if she, has a seamless transition, she should be able to make an immediate impact next year. And if you're combining that with the women's team that returns the majority of their scoring from last season, where they made the round of 32 and pushed Oregon for 3+ quarters in their arena in the second round last year, you could be in store for a pretty special season at Assembly Hall for Teri Moren's crew. Allen was recruited by a lot of other quality Big Ten teams like Iowa and Purdue. It's pretty, this is a very competitive recruitment, and for her to win Miss Basketball and for Teri Moren to have that feather in her cap as well, it's all thumbs up right now. It's all sunshine and rainbows for IU women's basketball, and it's going to be an exciting season.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice to see. Maybe, of course, even men's and women's basketball is a little different in the state of Indiana, but it's still Indiana basketball. And getting the stay in state, lock down the state kind of mentality, it seems like Teri's also trying to stay in state and then lock down some of those players like Miss Indiana. And since she now has 2 out of the 3, she got 2 out of the 3 in literally all of IU women's basketball history. And then they're actually going to start on the same team as well. Next year, they're going to play on the same court, start together. Then let's just see what else Teri Moren can do. Let's see if she can keep trying to get those Indiana Miss basketballs. And of course, it's just basically right now, it seems like the sky is the limit for Teri Moren and what she's able to do. But what about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, women's basketball, of course, has been the better of the 2 programs the last 2 years. I don't think that's, too incredibly outrageous to say. adding a 5-star recruit obviously boosts your team just a little bit, whether it's in men's or women's. They'll come in and play immediately. And look, we're losing Kim Royster, and our other center just transferred. So she has got all the playing time that she wants or needs. So she's going to come in day one and be a starter and probably a star for these Hoosiers, running pick and rolls with Allie Patberg. So, I mean, there's nothing better than some women Hoosiers balling out on the court, making the men look bad. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what they do next year. I'm positive that they'll be a tournament team, and it should be fun to see them in their journey from here.
Yeah, or at least almost as positive as you can be in terms of historical IU women's basketball for making the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do we need some sort of like guarantee sound effect? Like, you know, I heard there's a lot of confidence there, Matt. I like
verification.
that. Maybe we need to add that to our podcast.
Noah, get on those sound effects.
Bold declarations.
Slacking.
Yeah, okay. We'll get on that. But let's move to the men's side. And of course, Trace Jackson Davis was named Indiana Mr. Basketball. He was the first winner from Center Grove. He is the 28th IU winner of Indiana Mr. Basketball, where Archie has now recruited two of those guys in a row. This was the first time since 1997 and 1998 where Luke Recker and Tom Coverdale were named back-to-back Indiana Mr. Basketball to have two in a row, and the sixth time that Indiana has gotten them back-to-back. This looks to be a third year for the Archie's basically looking to make it a third year for the first time in Indiana history where a school getting Indiana Mr. Basketball 3 times in a row has basically only happened once. Well, not basically, it has only happened once, and it was to Purdue, in 1964 to 1966. So with Anthony Leal and kind of Trey Galloway being the current front runners for next season's Indiana Mr. Basketball, Archie could potentially get a chance then to even get 4 in a row, with the likely 2021 Indiana Mr. Basketball going to Christian Lander. Just Archie, of course, having to recruit him. So there's the potential for Archie being able to do 3 in a row, which has only happened once. And it would be nice to tie Purdue in even just any statistic, even something as something like this, but then potentially get it 4 in a row, which has never, ever been done before. And everyone talks about the Archie Miller lacking in recruitment, which is a whole other discussion in itself that we don't have to dig into. But when you see him getting 2 Indiana Mr. Basketball recruits in literally his first 2 recruiting classes, then I think that also just starts it in itself just to kind of say what Archie's been doing with this recruitment program recently.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. It's funny there, Noah. Like, you don't have to be a big Archie Miller fan at this point, and you could probably justify not being one, just given how the team hasn't made the NCAA tournament the first 2 seasons. But I don't think you can use the recruiting thing against Archie. Whether it's Langford or Jackson Davis or even a guy like Rob Finnessy, I feel like he's checked that box. Now it's just a matter of translating that onto the court.
Yeah, I agree. Just a little more background with the Indiana Mr. Basketball. So between 2006 and 2015, 8 of 10 of those winners were drafted into the NBA. 7 of those 8 were drafted in the first round itself. The last 3 winners, so to this date, Kyle Guy, Chris Wilkes, and Romeo Langford are all projected to be drafted this coming NBA draft in June, making it 11 of the past 13 Indiana Mr. Basketball winners eventually going on to the NBA, which is, of course, good news for not only Trace, but Indiana itself. So Matt, why don't you get your 2 cents in here thinking about just Trace getting the latest Indiana Mr. Basketball?
I mean, of course, it was well-deserved. Some people thought that maybe Keon Brooks had a shot, but, I feel like some of the political game when it comes to Mr. Basketball almost secured it for Trace when he committed here and Keon committed to Kentucky. I really enjoy the fact that we're in the running for the next 2 men's basketball Mr. Basketballs. That would be like a wonderful like achievement for Archie, especially since he set out to do the inside out recruiting philosophy. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys took all my points pretty much. I'm excited to see him play in a Hoosiers uniform, and I will come out right now and say he's on a 2-year plan. So those of you who know.
Well, Keon wasn't a finalist for Indiana Mr. Basketball, right?
Well, yeah, he wasn't a finalist. I feel like he would have been a finalist if he had stayed in state and gone to a in-state school. I just feel like politics of committing to Kentucky and going to a boarding school kind of just pushed him out of the way.
Yeah, because you kind of got to stay in state basically most of the time.
Yeah.
But what about you, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's exciting, right? Like, I think it's noteworthy that Mr. Basketball is staying in the state and playing for IU. There's a history of Mr. Basketballs recently before Romeo Langford that not only didn't go to IU, but I think a lot of IU fans wish had gone to play in Bloomington, right? We just saw Kyle Guy torment teams throughout March to win the NCAA tournament. So, a guy like Gary Harris is still in the NBA playoffs in the final 8 teams left. So, to get a guy like Jackson Davis to play for the Cream and Crimson is a noteworthy accomplishment for Archie. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, guys, at this point, it's a matter of translating the recruits into wins.
And you mentioned Kyle Guy. I didn't think, even with the coaching change, I think Chris Wilkes would have rather, if he had to do it over again, I think he might have picked IU over UCLA when it was all said and done after.
Yeah, or somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we also didn't even talk about, on the women's side, I mentioned how Indiana got Miss Basketball and one of the runner-ups. Of course, Indiana also got the men's side got Trace as Mr. Basketball, but then Armand as one of the finalists as well. So Archie's not only getting the guys that are winning and and Teri Moren for the girls, but they're getting the runner-ups and some of those people that are also going to be, like we talked about, the glue when it comes to winners down the road. And getting any finalists for Indiana Mr. Basketball, usually I think it's safe to say Indiana high school basketball is pretty good. So if you get any finalists, I think you're doing pretty good in terms of recruiting anyway. But any last thoughts on either of those, you guys?
No, I think we summed it up pretty well. I'm curious to see what people have to say on Twitter and in our comments. Let us know. Is this much ado about nothing, or is Trace Jackson Davis and Jory Allen, are these two players who can really kind of revitalize the men's program or keep that progress going on the women's side? Let us know. Shoot us a tweet or a Facebook message. I'm curious to know what you guys think.
Yeah, I agree. Like fan interaction, even if it's more of the negative side sometimes, which maybe more the negative side is like, I don't care until we start winning games, which is a fair point.
Well, I'd rather have negative reaction than no reaction at all, because if people, aren't tweeting and aren't posting messages on Facebook, or they're not showing up to games, that means they don't care. And that's the furthest thing from the truth with IU basketball fans.
And speaking of fan interaction, now, if you are not a fan of the Avengers, I will just say this now. I would probably turn this podcast off or listen to the last 10 or however many minutes we're going to go, just having more of a fun conversation. But we, Nathan, actually at the last minute almost thought of the podcast idea, because we were trying to come up with podcast ideas. And folks, it is hard to come up with podcast ideas sometimes, especially on slow weeks. It's hard to find a lot of those ideas. But Nathan had the idea to compare, basically to have, if you were to pick an IU basketball player that were to be an Avenger, who would it be and why? So we asked on Twitter and Facebook to see if we could get some of your reaction, because I think this discussion would be the best, hearing things from you, because Matt could give his couple of people, Nathan and I could do that, but then it's just great. But what are your thoughts? Because you're going to think of a lot of things that we wouldn't have even dreamed of. And there's a specific comment that I would have had no idea or to pick that we'll get into later. But let's start with Matt before we get into some of your responses that we are going to read over air. So, Matt, what are one or two Indiana basketball players that you could see as an Avenger?
First off, I gotta go with Victor Oladipo as Black Panther. Only because he did the Black Panther mask for the dunk contest. So there you go. He gets Black Panther. Well, also Victor Oladipo's the coolest, and Black Panther is the coolest superhero at me. Anyways, the nerdiest and probably like funniest and most relatable basketball player that I can remember has got to be Jordy Hulse, and so he is going to be Spider-Man in my opinion. He's Spider-Man. I just think he's a hometown guy. Repping his hometown. And he's lovable, and he's got quite the character. And this summer, and he's going overseas. So I think he fits the Spider-Man mold perfectly. And then for Iron Man, I got to go with my boy, Juwan Morgan, who didn't get as much as he deserved for his career, but was a genius, a basketball genius, and quite the player, and maybe a minor hero among some of the more historical figures, but nonetheless is big and important in our hearts. So
nice.
There's my picks.
Nice. Yeah. Frame by Frame Who's on Twitter. Also, all they did was just posted the picture of Victor Oladipo in his Black Panther mask. So
look, Frame by Frame Hoops, we're on the same wavelength. We understand each other. So
yeah. Exactly. Let's go with Stephanie on Twitter. Now, this was a different take on Black Panther. So Stephanie on Twitter thought Deron Davis equals Black Panther. He absorbs people bumping into him, and he hits them back with even more power. And then she had the huffing with anger emoji and the devil emoji posted there. So since Matt, you picked Black Panther, do you have any rebuttal, or do you agree? Because I kind of like this comparison, especially for what the reasoning she gave.
Oh, can you repeat that again? You just lagged out on my screen. So
my fault. So Deron Davis equals Black Panther. He absorbs people bumping into him and hits him back with even more power than using the huffing with anger emoji and the devil emoji.
Look, I'm fine with that answer too. I could see Deron as Black Panther. I just don't think he's quick enough. He's not quick enough. Black Panther is quick.
Okay.
Gotta be fast on your feet.
Then Dakota, Cody from our website gave a couple of really nice ones. Yogi as Hulk. And first of all, Yogi is basically the tiniest athlete ever to go through the program almost, but he gave the reason for his freakish physique, which I could get by because he's so, just for him being so small, just how muscular he was, and maybe not for the sheer size, but I could see that. And then he also had Derek Elston as Thor. So any thoughts about that, Nathan?
I like that as I like the Yogi Hulk comparison as much as any of the ones we've heard so far. I like Deron Davis's Black Panther, but I just remember watching Yogi play. He seemed like he at times looked like he had a defensive lineman's body in a point guard. So I've always I think that's a really good comparison. I also feel like sometimes he would celebrate kind of looking like the Hulk. He would really sort of puff up and swell up and sort of chest bump guys. And I feel like if Hulk played for IU, he would celebrate in a similar kind of fashion. So all in all, the funny thing is I suggest this. I'm not even, that well educated of an Avengers fan. So I feel like I kind of opened up a Pandora's box of issues, but I am familiar with the Incredible Hulk.
There you go.
So I think that's a really nice comparison.
You talked about the celebration. You could also say Thomas Bryant for that specific time, that celebration with the putting the arms down with just showing all of his veins and everything. But
I'd like to interject one more person too into this conversation for Hulk.
Sure.
Can we add Will Sheehy to that just for his dunk in that one game, just hulking over somebody? Can we just add Will Shaheed to that conversation.
Yeah, and then you could add anyone with any of those incredible Indiana dunks. With recently how they put the top 4 dunks, basically, where Troy Williams was a little salty about that, but you could probably
Sorry,
put any
Troy.
of them. Yeah. All right, Nathan, did you have any others that you particularly had, or was this just your idea that you were throwing out and didn't think it would get this far?
Ah, man, that's tough. You know, look, Captain America being a leader, you know, that's one where I think you can almost take your pick of head coach at IU. I guess, you know, as the leader of the team right now, I'd go with Archie Miller, right? He's got to be Captain America, and I think that's the one I would choose.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I agree. There are a couple Captain America ones that we're about to get to. So Dustin from our Indiana HQ back channels also, he gave a lot of really cool insights. So I'll just read through all of his stuff, and then we can comment on the ones we like the best. But he had Jordy Hulls as Hawkeye, given his sharpshooting / accuracy. And then he had Isaiah Thomas as Spider-Man for quick, agile, and dangerous, and also as a leader. Then he had Victor Oladipo as Falcon because of his aerial assaults around the rim, and I could see that. And then Steve Alford as Captain America because he was a natural leader of the team, and he's often seen as one of those best of all times at IU. Calbert Cheney was M'Baku from the Black Panther, fierce tribal leader, fan favorite, strong-willed, domineering. So I'll kick it over to Matt first, since he took a lot of your Spider-Man, Victor Oladipo kind of players. So do you have any crazy objections, or did you like all those comparisons?
I like them all except for Hawkeye and Jordy Hulls. Like, Jordy's a wonderful human being and blessed, but in the comics, Hawkeye is a bit of a douche. So I'm gonna have to say no for Hawkeye, even though I do understand the sharpshooting. But anyways,
Let's take out that part, and that'd be great anyway.
yeah.
All right, yeah. All right, Nathan, any objections?
No, I think I'm good. Sorry.
Nice, that's fine. All right, my picks. So we'll see what you guys think. I had Eric Gordon as Vision, which is almost self-explanatory because Eric Gordon and Vision and scoring. So, but then I had Groot for Thomas Bryant because he's a little taller and lankier, but he's still pretty strong. And then I was thinking about this. Let me get your thoughts. I'll get your thoughts on TB and then Yogi. I was also thinking Yogi, you could add him as Ant-Man, because there's where you can add his small size, but then he's also quick to basically just run around everyone and just get around everyone, literally from below or above. So, Matt, do you like or dislike the TB or Yogi Avenger?
No, I agree. I honestly, like, all these people have been heroes to me since I've been growing up and or being at school. So, I mean, you could answer with almost anything, and I'm not really gonna have a problem with it. So
Nice. Nathan, what did you think?
I know. I look. I'm all for fan interaction. So look, just because you're, you know, this. Look, we're recording this on Tuesday night, but that doesn't mean y'all can't hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. You know, let us know who you think, past or present. Let us know which IU basketball players, men or women, sort of have that connection to the Avengers, and we'll probably retweet a few on our Indiana HQ account. I think we've got some 1,718 followers or so. So, you know, we'll shout you out if we like what you've got.
Yeah. We'll see if we could also do it maybe later when we can advertise it just a little more and try and get some more fan involvement, because there's already some great ones. But I guarantee if you're listening all the way down here, you're just like, oh, I like this, and you're missing this, and like I don't like this or something. So like Nathan said earlier, we love fan interaction. Comment on the post that we're going to post about this, or send us a message, anything, and we will get them on it. So what are we going to say, Matt?
I was gonna say I have my idea for Thanos, which is definitely Gene Katie. So there you go. Ugly and a terrible person. So
all right. This last one.
Some background story to that, Matt?
No, just take it at that.
All right, fair enough. This last one predates us three just a little bit, so I don't think we're the people that are qualified enough to go in depth about these people. And we did ask for any decade but we got basically a lot of 70s players, very specific ones, not even necessarily the ones that you hear of as at least as popular to this day. So we got Martin from Facebook. So let me go through all of the ones that he wrote, and didn't give an explanation, but I guess you can just think of his Avengers and think of it how you will. So he had Kent Benson is Thanos, Quinn Buckner as Black Panther, Scott May as Heimdall, which if you forgot is the guy that basically is the guy that goes between the two portals, lets people in and out with for Thor. Then you've got Bobby Wilkerson as Nick Fury, Tom Abernathy Spider-Man, John Laskowski as Thor, and then there it is, Coach Bobby Knight as Captain America. So, like I said, we are probably not the people very qualified enough to go in depth with most of these people, but did you have any thoughts on anyone specific, Nathan?
No, not at all. And I like that little old school flavor we brought into this discussion. I did want to point out though, speaking of some of the older old time basketball players, really some of the most iconic ones at IU, over on Indiana HQ, whenever an iconic player's birthday approaches, we've got this recent series of articles coming out where we've posted a real thorough sort of biography of these players. You know, maybe you're just about to start school at IU in the upcoming fall and you want to maybe brush up on knowing who some of the best basketball players are that have played at Assembly Hall. We've got a thorough breakdown of these different players, their backgrounds, their early lives through high school, and then we break it down. We tell you what their impact was at IU and what kind of great highlights they've had. There's video, there are graphics. I highly recommend that sort of series for IU basketball fans. Just over to our website, Indiana HQ, and you can catch those.
Yes, sir.
Hashtag shameless plug. Matt, do you have any thoughts of those old time players that Martin mentioned?
Who was Nick Fury again?
Nick Fury was Bobby Wilkerson.
I really like that one. That one's great.
Any particular reason?
I don't know. I just feel like his character, they fit each other really well. Also, I just like Samuel L. Jackson. So
yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, so it's cool. I like it. Anyway,
that's fair enough. All right, but real quick, if you hadn't seen on Twitter yet, Ethan Morton, class of 2020 potential recruit, will be announcing his decision on Thursday at 8:45 p.m. via Twitter. He said this himself. I think he's on the East Coast, correct? Yeah, Pennsylvania. So it should be 8:45 p.m. on Twitter. Sadly, at least as to this day, the people are guessing that he's going to go to Purdue, which is not the great news to end on this podcast. But I guess we'll see this week. And again, Trendon Watford, kind of, sort of, maybe this week, just he said whenever, and then, but definitely we'll see Lester on Friday. So next week we will maybe have some players to talk about, but maybe have some disappointments to talk about. So we'll see about that next week. And that about wraps it up for our 87th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. I will be back next Monday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. A big thanks to our live audience for coming out and participating in the chat as always. Make sure to stay tuned through updates on Twitter. Visit our website, indianahq.com, and subscribe so you can get all of those episodes right to your phone. Send us your questions or your Avengers comparisons as the audience on what questions you have, and we'll get them on our next episode. Most importantly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. Tell a friend, share our links. Your support is how we grow this podcast so we can reach those passionate IU fans just like you. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.